Today I'm going to present to you the study, Pretty in Pink, the early development of gender stereotyped color preferences. This study was actually just published last year, so it's super recent, and it was published in the British Journal of Developmental Psychology. In the background reading for today, they talk a lot about gender identity and how it develops by the age of 2 to 3 in children. They also talk a lot about gender schema theory, which is the framework for assigning perceptions to either a masculine or a feminine category. Also, society plays a huge role in propagation of this either-or framework. I'm sure a lot of you girls in here were dressed up in pink little bows when you were young, and guys in blue, baby blue. And this is actually one of the stereotypes that this study is going to examine. They want to examine, do girls have a preference for pink, and how early does this preference develop? The authors of the study hypothesized that color preferences occur as a result of gender identity. So if gender identity comes up between 2 and 3 years old, then color preferences should develop in the 2nd or 3rd year of life. So 192 preschool children were recruited and assigned to 6 age groups, 7 to 11 months, and then 1 through 5 years. Each group had 32 children in it, and they were half male, half female. So how did they look at color preferences in the children? They actually offered the children pairs of objects, and there were 8 objects in total. So I've pictured them here, so hopefully you'll get a good understanding. The first one was a plastic paper clip, the second was a measuring cup, the third one were bracelets, fourth one were coasters, fifth one was a pill box, sixth one was a bathroom poof thing, and the seventh one was a picture frame, and the 8th one was a koosh ball, which is like those squishy balls that you played with as a child. So the experimenter sat facing the subject and offered a pair of objects simultaneously to the subject. One of the objects was always pink, and the other one was one of 4 colors. So it was either blue, orange, green, or yellow. Here I've shown koosh balls offered, and then the experimenter would ask the subject, which one do you like better? The subject would respond verbally, and if they were too young to talk, they would express their choice by which one they reached for first. Also, it's important to note that to control for handedness, they put the pink object equally on the right and the left hand sides. Let's take a look at the results. On the x-axis, we have the different age groups, 7 to 11 months all the way to 5 years. And on the y-axis, we have how often the pink object was chosen. They tried to be creative and did pink bars for girls and blue bars for boys, but just keep in mind that they're all how often the pink object was chosen. It's a bit confusing, but just keep that in mind. The dotted line at 50 represents no preference, so half the time they chose the pink object and half the time they chose the other color. So that's no preference. Above the line is a preference for pink, and below the line is an avoidance of pink. If we take a look at the ages, up until 1 year, there's no sex difference and no preference for the color pink. At 2 years old, we see the pink bar starting to rise, and it becomes statistically significant at around 3 years of age. So we see a big spike between 2 and 3 years in girls. This shows a developing preference for the color pink between the ages of 2 and 3. This preference actually becomes even stronger till 4 years. In boys, we see the opposite pattern. From 3 to 4 years, we see a drop in the blue bar, so that's an avoidance of the color pink, and then even further until 5. Does this support our hypothesis that color preferences emerge in the 2nd or 3rd year? Yes, for girls. So we see between 2 and 3 years, the pink bar spikes, but it happens a little later in boys. The blue bar drops between 4 and 5 years. To summarize, girls obtain a preference for pink between the ages of 2 and 3, and this preference becomes stronger throughout childhood, and boys begin to express an avoidance of pink between 3 and 4 years, and there's increased avoidance throughout childhood. Couple limitations, like in any social psychology experiment, there's experimental bias. So when the experimenter's offering the koosh balls to the girl, they might have subconscious cues making the pink ball seem more appealing. Also, these are common household objects, so a 5-year-old might not think that a pill box is cool, but a 7-month-year-old might be like, whoa, a pill box. So, but they controlled for this by asking which one do you like better, not which one do you want to play with. So it's difficult to explain whether social or genetic factors were responsible for this. When I first looked at it, I thought it was all social, but it's important to note that genetic factors can come up later in life with the gene-environment interaction. So I'm going to go over some proximate and ultimate explanations for the results and then kind of summarize at the end. In terms of proximate, there's mechanism and ontogeny. So social learning is likely to have played a role. So gender stereotype color preferences, pink toys being offered to girls and to play with, which are pink, and blue toys to boys. So all these kind of parental and peer influences can propagate these, or even have an influence on these gender stereotype color preferences that we see. In terms of ultimate explanations, as far as adaptation, evolutionary psychologists propose that women in the EEA were the primary gatherers, so they had a preference for the color pink in order to, there's a selection for this in order to pick the ripest fruits. And this is possible. Obviously we can't tell from the study, but it's possible that this was in the genes and that it wasn't until 2 or 3 years that they needed to forage. So this could have developed with no social factors at all. In terms of phylogeny, there's not a whole lot of research or studies out there about the color pink in non-human primates in terms of color preferences, and there aren't that many cross-cultural studies. So it'd be interesting to see maybe in another culture that like baby blue for boys and pink for girls isn't the norm, to see if those preferences still exist. And that would definitely give some genetic basis to all of this. So to summarize, obviously there are a lot of complex interactions between the social and biological determinants. From this study alone, we can't tell how much of a role each one of them plays, but we can definitely make inferences and hope for future studies to see how much of a role each will play in the future. Thank you.